I wanted to talk about if you are getting in the position of hiring somebody to run your social media or to help out with your content or whatever. This is something where I think a lot of people don't understand the amount of spokes on the wheel. And I know this is true because I talk to small business owners about this stuff all the time. And unless you're in this space, like if you're already, if you've got a $50 million company and you've got an agency employed and you've got your systems and processes all set up, you already know this stuff. You're not going to be shocked at what it costs you to effectively market your business. But if you are, 3 years in, 5 years in, and you're a $2 million, $3 million business and you want to start getting into doing some marketing, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to get some sticker shock. Like that, it's just going to happen. And I've had this happen with clients in the past and I've had it happen where people would send me, I had a friend say, hey, my company is looking to hire, they're wanting to hire somebody to do our social media. We have a podcast, blah, blah, blah. They're looking for somebody for this job. They want somebody full time. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Well, send me the information. So I looked up the job post and I wish I still had it. This was back in 2021. So this is a couple years ago. And I looked at it and I knew they were hiring somebody full time, but I also knew what the salary was and it was low. I mean, when I look at it, it was low for what they were asking for. I mean, they were asking for somebody who, and I'm gonna list out a handful of things that are individual jobs that a lot of people just think, well, if I'm hiring you to do my social media, you should be able to do all these things and do them well. Okay. Number 1, graphic designer. Number 2, copywriter. Number 3, blog writer. Number 4, photographer, photo editing. Number 5, video production. Number 6, podcast production, creation, et cetera, et cetera. And number 7, email marketing. Like this is just a group of tasks or a group of fields of work that a lot of people will lump in and they'll sit there and say, well, I'm going to hire somebody and I'm going to pay him 40 grand a year, 50 grand a year, maybe even 60 grand a year to do this stuff. And the idea is, because if you hire someone like me, or if you hire a fractional CMO and somebody comes in and says, well, it's going to cost you, like let's just throw out a number, like $4 grand a month, right? Like, well, if I could hire somebody for 48 grand a year, and you say, yes, you could hire someone for 48 grand a year, but the problem is the person that you hire for 48 grand a year is not going to be able to do all of those things at the level you're expecting them to be done at. I can guarantee it. Or like here are the 2 scenarios that's going to happen. And so let's say you want to hire somebody, you're going to pay him, let's just use that example. Let's say I'm going to pay somebody 50 grand a year to do social media for my small business. And I expect them to do all the things I just listed out, right? They need to be posting reels to TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube Shorts. They need to be posting, graphic design content to LinkedIn. They need to be writing a blog, let's say twice a month. They need to be producing and editing a podcast, let's say 2 times a month. They need to be pulling content out of that. They need to be on Twitter. They need to be posting to Instagram. They need to be posting to stories, all of these things, right? These are all parts. These are like sums of the part of what I do for my clients. And the problem is, let's say you hire that person, you find them, you bring them on board. Generally speaking, it's going to be someone pretty young. You're hiring somebody they're a couple years out of college and they're very excited to get in and start working for you. One of 2 things is going to happen most likely. Number 1, you're going to hire somebody who is a clock watcher. And I call it when I say clock watcher, what I mean is somebody that wants to come in and punch out, and you need to hold their hand and you need to tell them exactly what you want. So you're going to have to spend all the time saying, hey, I want 2 Instagram reels posted per week. I want 3 posts to LinkedIn a week. I want blah. Like you're going to have to be very specific. You're going to have to hold their hand and you're going to have to hold their feet to the fire because they're going to do as little as they possibly have to get by. And I've seen this happen. I've seen it happen where somebody gets excited, they bring in a young person. It doesn't have to be a young person, but in the case I'm talking about, it was, and this person was just no motivation. Like I couldn't, like, I was like, you need to, and this person came to me and said, how do I, what should I be doing? I said, well, you should be writing every day if you want to write blogs. That was part of the job. Well, I could do maybe one blog a month. I was like, one blog a month? I mean, what are you talking about? Like, it's crazy, right? So the possibility is you could get somebody, and that person you will be able to keep on staff, so if that's what you want, if you want somebody to say, well, I got a social media person, they're on staff, they show up and they got their 2 weeks vacation, and they post where I tell them to post, when I tell them to post it. But those people are generally not going to be the ones that are looking around the corner and saying, hey, maybe we could start using AI for some of this stuff, or, we should start posting carousels on LinkedIn now because that's really doing well. Like, they're not going to bring those ideas to you. A clock watcher is literally going to do exactly what you tell them to do and not one thing more. And they're going to maybe they'll stick around for a while. So that's the first person you're going to get. The second person you're going to get is the person you want. The person that maybe they don't have enough experience to get a job. So like 50 grand a year, which there's nothing wrong with 50 grand a year, by the way, but like that's great for them. But what's going to happen is they're the people they're self-motivated, they're self-starters, they are problem solvers, which, let me tell you something, if there is something that this world is in there's a dire shortage right now, regardless of what industry you're in, of people that can actually figure things out. And it's ironic because it's never been easier to figure things out, but that is in short supply, right? So let's say you get that person that is just a total rock star and they're crushing it. And let's say they came in with experience, they came in with a little bit of video experience, and they really started excelling. They continued to get better at video. They dove into photography. They dove into graphic design. They got into the podcasting thing. They started figuring out, and they're crushing it, right? So they're going to stick with you for 6 months to a year. And then they're going to realize that they could hire themselves out to 4 people and make more money than what you're paying them and do the same amount of work. So that is the big issue. If you get the right person for that job, then you're going to have to pay them for it, which is the other option, which is you need to, you're going to have to pay them for it. And that's a risk because you don't know, hey, I'm going to spend, close to 6 figures on somebody, and I don't know if they're going to be able to produce what I need. I don't know if I'm going to get a return on that investment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when you have a crazy long list of, I don't know if you call them demands, but of things that you want this person to do, understand that you can either get a clock watcher who's going to do exactly what you tell them and nothing more, and they might not even get everything done that you tell them, or you're going to get somebody that takes the bull by the horns and actually kicks ass, and they're going to realize that they're very valuable because those people are hard to find. And if they're self-starters, they're going to look around and they're going to say, well, look, this video guy out here is making $200 an hour, and I'm shooting video like crazy, and I'm making, they're going to do the math. They're going to connect the dots, and they're going to realize it makes more sense for me to be a freelance person and be working with 3, 4, 5, 6 companies, however many you can manage, and do things that way. So if you are a small business owner and you're thinking to getting into that world, and you're like doing that math problem, which is completely legitimate, right? Because you have to justify, if you're going to spend $4,000 a month or $5,000 a month, and this person's not even coming in to work for you, like, it totally makes sense. But if you go to an agency, you're going to find out very quickly that you're not going to move the needle for under $4,000 or $5,000 a month. And then when you get into an agency, when you are spending that level of money, you're going to be their smallest client, which means you're going to get the new person that comes on board, and they probably stick around. Look at the turnover. They're going to stick around for a year, and you're going to have to retrain people on your brand, your voice, et cetera. So those are just pitfalls that I want you to be aware of. I want to try to help you understand that if you're not familiar with this stuff, which most people aren't, they have no idea. They think if you're going to do social media, they think of it as an all-encompassing deal. But the reality of it is, you look at what most people think of, and it's really, 7 different jobs. Like, if you hired an agency, you would have people, you would have a graphic designer that was working on the graphic design. You'd have a copywriter working on the copy. You'd have a blog writer, probably maybe the same person as a copywriter. You'd have a photographer that was doing, none of these jobs would overlap if you were hiring an agency, because these are all very specialized fields. And it is like, for me, I've been able to say, okay, well, I can go super wide and fairly deep in some things, deeper in certain areas than other, but you really want to be aware of that. Like, I want you to know that if somebody comes to you and says, hey, it's going to cost, $3,000 a month or $4,000 a month, that's not necessarily crazy if you're expecting them to do 7 different jobs for that time. You know what I mean?